Okay, here's a game that I played quite recently. I was black like usual, and my opponent was a pretty strong opponent. It was an equal game the whole way through, basically, with some exceptions. So I gave up my queen for 2 rooks, and the opening was Danish gambit, I think. And the time control was, well, it was a bliss game, 3 minutes with 3 seconds on each move. So let's take a quick look at this. He played e4. I played e5, d4, e takes, c3. And by the way, this reminds some of, well, actually, of the e takes d4, c3. This could have been the Sicilian c3, except that I didn't play c5, instead I played e5, but this really looks like the Sicilian. But of course it isn't. I played d5, which is the main move. Queen takes, and here I went out of book with bishop e6. Theory gives knight f6, bishop g5, d takes, queen takes, king takes, knight d2, bishop f5, knight e2, bishop d6, castles, and rook e8, and some other moves. But the reason I didn't like the move knight f6 was for the following move, like we just saw, bishop g5, because after d takes, queen takes, king takes, it can also mess up my pawn structure with something like bishop takes, f6. I have to say something like g takes, he can play this move, and let's say after f5, he can even play something like f3, and if I take, then I really have double pawns. And if I play e3, then knight to c4, let's say, and then if I play f4, he can play g3, and obviously this trade has to take place, otherwise I would just lose a pawn for nothing, followed by this pawn. So let's say take, and now this pawn is just doomed. There's no way to hold on to that pawn too long. I know obviously I can't play something like f5 followed by f4, because he can just take, or even play f4 himself. And no, I didn't like that, so I played bishop e6 instead. And the point is obvious. Now if he takes, I can just take back with my queen, and we would just have a queen trade, nothing else. Instead he played knight f3, developing a piece, and here I play knight c6. He played bishop b5, a good move, obviously developing his piece, and also of course now I was threatening his queen. Now I can't do that because it's a pin against my king, so I played a6, bishop takes, b takes. Now you could say that, well, I do have double pawns in any case, but, well, that's true, but on the other hand, I'd much rather prefer to have double pawns on the queen side than on the king side. And also my plan is to play c5 and followed by, okay, let's take a look at it. It actually happened. He played castles, I played c5, and now with the queen e3, I could even play c6, solidifying those pawns. Well, the pawn on d5, and the pawn on c5 is well protected. No threats over there. So I play knight f6. Now it's okay to play knight f6, and after knight e5, knight e4, I could have played knight d7 as well. Reminds some of the French game. Usually knight d7 is a very typical game, attacking pawn on e5. But instead I played a more logical move. I think I play knight e4. And now after knight d2, which I think he should have played anyway, I just took it off, and bishop takes, bishop e7, and by the way, there's also another thing here. I didn't like the idea that he could play, let's say, okay, he played e5, but you know, this threat was always in the air as well. Just threatening this bishop over here. I didn't like that. So after, okay, he played e5, and also it could have happened after knight d7, bishop to knight g5. I didn't quite like that, especially when this pawn is not on c6. And also, if this trade would ever take place, then I would have a hold on f7 basically. But maybe it's not so bad. I don't know. But anyway, I play knight e4, and here we just trade bishops, and bishop e7. And now if he plays knight g5, I can just trade everything off. Knight takes, bishop takes, queen takes, bishop takes, and c6. And this is perfectly equal game. So okay, after bishop e7 he played rook a to d1. I played castles, queen f4, c6. Rook f e1, just developing pieces. Rook b8, b3, queen a5. And now he makes a passive move, rook a1, but, you know, it doesn't really matter that much. Queen a3, just mixing things up. There's not really much else to do. And also, I don't want to play a move like h6 now, because he can even play something like, you know, whatever, and then perhaps one day even sacrifice the bishop on h6. Here he went to b1, not quite sure, except that he wanted to play b4 at some point. I'll play queen a5, and here he did play b4, queen b6, takes, and here I gave up my queen for 2 rooks, like this, and now it's check, so he has to put a piece in between. He put the bishop there, you can also put the knight there, but I think the bishop is better, just like he did. And here I took back my pawn on c5, and he played g4. Okay, giving his king on space. Well, I suppose g3 was also... Well, maybe not. Maybe he was afraid of something like, if g3, then perhaps potentially something like bishop to h3. I don't know. Maybe one day. Who knows? So he played g4. Rook f b8, just doubling those rooks. King g2. And here I started pushing my pawn after some exchanges like this, and I won the pawn on a1, a2, and he played h3, just obviously protecting the pawn in case he would ever move his queen. A4, king g3, a3, queen a7, rook f8. Just I was playing it safe. I could have played rook c8 instead, of course, but bishop c1, rook a1, and here we took the pawn. I gave up my pawn on d5. I played d4, and the point was that I want to activate this bishop somehow, because when the pawn was on d5, I couldn't, you know, this bishop couldn't move anywhere. So I just played d4, c takes, and now bishop d5. Obviously, they can't take my rook over here because it's pinned against his queen. So he played queen e7, threatening to take my rook with checkmate. So I played rook a8, bishop c5, and here we took a draw with repetition of moves. So it was an equal game all through. I think Ripka gave black a clear advantage after the queen trade over here. But it's not that simple, I think. But also in a blitz game, it's very, very difficult to see all the moves. And perhaps it was a little bit ridiculous to stop pushing this pawn too early and too much, especially after I should have just kept things as they are and slowly started working on this pawn, and perhaps won the first win the pawn on a2, and then just push it up somehow. But you know, it's not that easy. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this game that I played. It was a Danish gambit, at least a couple of moves in, and I'll see you soon.